We often look at combat sports as life's teacher in terms of dealing with adversity and understanding the trajectory of where we're going to take our life whenever adversity, whenever hardships, or whenever successes come our way. And that is the reason why we tune in every Saturday night to watch these warriors, whether it be in the boxing ring or the mixed martial arts cage. One of the most compelling storylines that you get out of that aspect is none other than having a teacher in life, understanding the struggles that other people go through, and sometimes maybe not that really uh, opposite of yours or far away from yours. So, as I was tagged in this conversation and discussion that I thought I wanted to share with you guys, is really interesting conversation about Eddie Hearn. This is by a Facebook friend of mine, Michael Kelly. Questions: what happens now with Eddie Hearn and with Matchroom in boxing? Where will this man be in 5 to 10 years from now? Will he be better or worse position than he is today? And reasons as to why. What do you think? And he says, thank you. So a great way to answer that is, I think that, for one, I've seen Eddie Hearn in plenty of IFL interviews talk to Coogan, mention about how he doesn't want to stay in boxing for a very long period of time. And the reason why he doesn't want to do that is because he's seen the likes of his father, who's been in the business for quite a number of years. And then you have somebody like Bob Arum, who everybody in the boxing scene has seen way before the amateur days of Muhammad Ali. And interestingly enough about Bob Arum, the man used to be a federal prosecutor in which he took down the mob that was running boxing, very similar to Daniel Kinahan in the modern era of today's boxing and mafia connections and whatnot. And so he took them down, and then after he took them down, he took basically what is a civilian job and became a promoter, became a young Eddie Hearn in his day as a post lawyer, post general attorney type of figure, now currently as one of the top promoters in boxing. Well, nonetheless, now he's around 89 or 90 years old. And the way that Eddie Hearn describes him is somebody that's very bitter, somebody that's always trying to get one up on the next guy, just always trying to be this head macho, machismo type of response to every attack or every type of nullification or every type of counter narrative. So it's a very bitter life to constantly be fighting with these things, and then to try to make these fights and try to have this aspect of harmony with the co-promotion that you're trying to do this big fight with. So there's just a lot that goes into that, and it's a real headache. And Eddie Hearn mentions that he has a time limit. And the reason why I thought this was really important is because I think there's a great life lessons in how we can draw from Eddie Hearn's trajectory and how he wants to go about with his career. And what exactly is that? Well, Eddie Hearn recognizes that there's a limit to things before certain things eat you up. So what does Eddie Hearn do in this situation? He gives you a time limit. He says, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue on with this path. I've had the ride of a lifetime. I've had world champions, undisputed champions, multiple times, big pay-per-views. I've had some of the setbacks with some of the toughest upsets that have ever happened in boxing history, and have also been involved in one of the biggest matches in boxing. And in all that, he is satisfied, fulfilled. And I think that with whatever criticism we have with Eddie Hearn, the one thing that we can really understand and give him credit for is the fact that he is a very fulfilled individual in terms of not having this bitter attitude of chasing numbers, not having this bitter attitude of always trying to outdo your neighbors or always trying to outdo your coworkers or something to that extent. Instead, what he has decided to do, and something that we all can learn from, is that he decided to take a path of self-realization. And I think that that is one of the biggest issues that I think everybody can agree that a lot of combat athletes, promoters, managers, trainers, and even podcasters and media people all have in common, is that they just don't know when to quit. Some of the most hardworking people in the business are not just the fighters, they're also the media people themselves. Think of all the hours that they put in. Think of all the hours that Kugan Cassius has put on with IFL Network, and then using his network that he's had with Ricky Hatton and things of that situation. Well, what you have going on right now with Eddie Hearn is understanding that, you know what? There are always going to be ups and lows, and I'm not going to let that define me. And I think that that is the most healthiest way to really look at a high strung, highly competitive career, no matter what it is, whether you're in construction, whether you're doing stocks, whether you're in the military, or whether you are in a certain sector that requires you to be a vicious animal outside of all combat sports, and then within the civilian sectors of civility and production and entertainment and all these things that we value in the modern world. But nonetheless, I think the way that we can understand Eddie Hearn to be the way that he is I think that he got it. He understands it. And part of the reason why he understands is because of the privilege that he has grown under. He's grown under the privilege of understanding that, you know what? This is who I am. I am boxing royalty. And as such, these are the realities of the sport. These are the realities of the fighters. These are the realities of fighters' longevity if he gets continued to get punished this way. Or this is the reality of a fighter if they don't stop, or if they think that they're going to have an undefeated streak. Maybe they may think again, and then he ends up putting these guys in tough fights that a lot of people criticize him for. Anthony Joshua, Kell Brook, the list goes on of all these different names that he's put in front of these people. Rocky Fielding, but obviously that is an in-house matchroom type of fight in the same situation with Bivol. If you remember, Eddie Hearn got attacked by Anthony Joshua in New York. His father attacked Eddie Hearn because he thought that Eddie Hearn was going to be the man to protect him. Instead, what Eddie Hearn has done, and in the most objective and frank way that I could really explain this, is emulate the matchmaking skills of the UFC, and in particular, his admiration of Dana White. And because of that, it has allowed him to create this boxing in a modern sense of having real fights, tough competitions, 50-50 splits in terms of the stakes of two undefeated prospects. Something that a lot of people have thought was absolutely sacrilegious in the boxing terms of its rules and regulations and customs that is agreed upon with the people within that world. But nonetheless, Eddie Hearn has a time limit, and I think that whether we like him or whether we hate him, and yes, he's a very polarizing figure at that, the one thing that we can really appreciate with this is that he understands and has a plan and a method that I think everybody can learn from, no matter what sector in life that they are involved in. With that in mind, enjoy the fights.